He didn't just sell drugs, he printed money. While governments struggled with budgets, one man was earning $400 million a week, not through oil, not through technology, but through pure, invisible cash. Banks couldn't handle his money. Governments couldn't control it. His fortune rotted, burned, and disappeared faster than it could be counted. This is the story of Pablo Escobar and the most dangerous financial empire ever built. He wasn't just rich. He was richer than nations. And he built that fortune with a product the world pretended it didn't want, while consuming it by the ton. To understand Pablo Escobar's financial power, you must first forget everything you think you know about wealth. This was not money sitting politely in bank accounts. This was not wealth managed by advisors in glass towers. This was raw, physical, uncontrollable money, stacked, buried, rotting, burned, and endlessly multiplying. At the height of his power in the late 1980s, Pablo Escobar was earning an estimated $420 million per week. Not per year, per week. His Medellin cartel controlled roughly 80% of the global cocaine trade, funneling drugs into the United States and Europe at an industrial scale. Cocaine was not a luxury product anymore. It was a mass-market commodity, and Escobar was its primary supplier. Every gram sold on a nightclub table in Miami. Every line snorted in New York bathrooms. Every brick unloaded on Florida shores. They all pointed back to one man. The scale of cash became his first problem. Escobar reportedly spent thousands of dollars per month just on rubber bands to hold his cash together. Rats chewed through stacks of bills stored in warehouses. Moisture destroyed millions more. He lost an estimated 10% of his income annually simply to decay. In a normal business, that would be catastrophic. For Escobar, it was irrelevant. The money came faster than it could be counted. Banks could not absorb this volume without asking questions. So Escobar created his own financial infrastructure. Money laundering was not a side operation. It was the backbone of his empire. Cash was flown to Panama, filtered through shell companies, real estate casinos, and offshore accounts. Entire accounting teams existed solely to make drug money appear clean. Fake invoices, overvalued imports, underreported exports. It was corporate fraud executed at a continental scale. But Escobar understood something deeper. Money is power only when it moves. He invested heavily in land, vast estates, cattle ranches, private zoos, football clubs, housing projects, not because he needed them, but because physical assets anchored his wealth in reality. Governments could freeze accounts. They could seize cash. But land was influence. Land was votes. Land was loyalty. In Medellin, Escobar did something revolutionary. He became a social welfare system. He built houses for the poor. He paid hospital bills. He funded schools and football fields. To the slums, he wasn't a criminal. He was a benefactor. His money didn't just buy silence. It bought devotion. When the state failed, Escobar filled the vacuum with cash. This is where his financial power crossed into political power. Escobar openly entered Colombian politics in the early 1980s. He dreamed not of hiding his wealth, but legitimizing it. He wanted a seat in Congress. He wanted immunity. He wanted history to remember him not as a criminal, but as a leader. And for a brief moment, it almost worked. But there was a fatal flaw in Escobar's empire. His wealth was too visible. Governments can tolerate corruption. They can tolerate crime. They cannot tolerate humiliation. Escobar wasn't just rich. He was embarrassing the state. His fortune exposed how weak institutions were, how porous borders had become, how easily money could overwhelm law, morality, and order. When the Colombian government, backed by the United States, moved against him, Escobar responded not like a businessman, but like a sovereign power under siege. He funded private armies, paid assassins, bribed judges, bought police units wholesale. His budget for violence alone rivaled the military spending of small nations. He famously offered Colombia a deal: cancel national debt or face war. It was not an empty threat. Bombings followed. Assassinations multiplied. Airlines exploded. Politicians fell, all financed by cash that never touched a bank. This is the paradox of Escobar's financial power. The very money that made him untouchable also made him impossible to control. Unlike modern billionaires, Escobar could not diversify into legitimacy fast enough. His wealth existed outside the system, and that meant the system would eventually unite to destroy him. When Escobar went into hiding, his money could no longer protect him fully. Assets were seized, accounts frozen, associates turned informants. The river of cash slowed, and yet, even in decline, his financial shadow lingered. After his death in 1993, billions of dollars were never recovered. Some remained buried in Colombian soil. Some were absorbed into other cartels. Some quietly entered the legitimate economy, washed clean by time. Pablo Escobar never appeared on Forbes as a joke. But for 7 consecutive years, he was officially listed among the world's richest men, the only criminal ever to achieve that status. His legacy is not just one of violence and drugs. It is a warning that in a globalized world, money can outgrow morality, that cash flows faster than laws, that financial power, once detached from accountability, can rival governments, rewrite politics, and leave scars long after the man behind it is gone. Pablo Escobar did not invent the drug trade, but he perfected the business of crime. And for a brief, terrifying moment in history, he proved that money, enough of it, can make a king without a crown. After his death in 1993, billions of dollars were never recovered. Some remained buried in Colombian soil. Some were absorbed into other cartels. Some quietly entered the legitimate economy, washed clean by time. Pablo Escobar never appeared on Forbes as a joke, but for 7 consecutive years, he was officially listed among the world's richest men, the only criminal ever to achieve that status. His legacy is not just one of violence and drugs. It is a warning that in a globalized world, money can outgrow morality, that cash flows faster than laws, that financial power, once detached from accountability, can rival governments, rewrite politics, and leave scars long after the man behind it is gone. Pablo Escobar did not invent the drug trade, but he perfected the business of crime. And for a brief, terrifying moment in history, he proved that money, enough of it, can make a king without a crown. This story didn't end with Pablo Escobar, because the forces that created him, unchecked money, weak institutions, and systems that reward power over accountability, are still very much alive. If you want to understand how wealth shapes history, how money bends morality, and how empires rise and fall in the shadows, then this channel is for you. Subscribe and stay here, where history isn't just remembered, it's understood.